Hello and welcome to Plant a Seed, getting rare varieties back on our plates and in our gardens with Mara Welton. I'm Janine Sheffert and I will be your host for this session. Thank you to Organic Valley for sponsoring this session. We really appreciate the financial support of our great sponsors who make hosting the conference on this beautiful platform possible. Before we get started with this presentation, I'd like to take a look at our community agreements. By being here today, we agree to be respectful, be curious, be patient, to speak from our own experiences, and to avoid jargon. Be conscious of intent versus impact. Take space if you are someone who does not speak up often, and make space for others if you are someone who is used to speaking. And lastly, remember to take care of yourself. We are here today with Mara Welton. Mara serves as the Director of Programs for Slow Food USA, developing nationwide programs and campaigns while coordinating and collaborating with global network leaders. Food production and access has been Mara's passion for the last 30 years as a farmer and chef, business owner, and community organizer. She currently serves on the board of Helping and Nurturing Diverse Seniors, connecting seniors to healthy and culturally relevant food. Mara's 20-year career in farming brought her to Slow Food's biodiversity work, and she served for 15 years in volunteer leadership roles, both in Slow Food Vermont and Slow Food USA, before coming on staff. Mara is also a listed member of the Seed Savers Exchange. Today, Mara is here to talk about Slow Food USA's Plant a Seed campaign. This year-long campaign centers on rare varieties of seeds from the Arc of Taste catalog and includes programming to engage a diverse audience around the themes of climate and nutrition. The campaign ends in celebrations of the featured varieties with dinners and local programming, engaging a larger network of chefs, schools, and community gardens. As Mara presents, please feel free to add questions and comments in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them during our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Mara, thank you so much for being here and sharing this inspiring seed program with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this wonderful conference. And thank you, Janine, for that really sweet intro. As you mentioned, I've been a longtime Seed Saver member and Seed Savers Exchange member, and I've been a listed member, and this is a little bit of a dream come true to be speaking at this conference today. So thank you so much for having me. As Janine mentioned, I'm a farmer, I'm a cook, I'm a community organizer. I was born and raised in Colorado, and I'm currently based in Vermont. And I found both Seed Savers and Slow Food in my work as a farmer, wanting to grow and save delicious and distinctive crops with a story and sharing them with my community as a grower. I'm going to talk a little bit today. I'll start with sort of centering what Slow Food is, and then tell you all about the Plant a Seed campaign, which I was lucky enough to come when I came into my role here at Slow Food. It was already a somewhat developed program and had a long 5-year history in our organization. And then with my perspective as a farmer and a grower and a gardener, I have spun just a little bit to be a little bit more of a deeper dive for growers and centering the story around the seeds. So I'm going to talk a lot about the past 2 years of the program specifically, and so bear with me as we sort of jump between 2022 and 2023 Plant a Seed campaigns. All right, so first we have to start with the beginning. Slow Food, I'm sure many of you are aware of it, but if you're not, it is an international organization. It's a million-person movement that began in Italy when McDonald's was being built at the foot of the Spanish Steps in Rome. And the Italians burst into protest, taking to the streets with bowls of penne pasta, proclaiming, "We don't want fast food, we want slow food." And this is how the slow food movement was born. And that's sort of the elevator pitch for what slow food is when people ask. It's when you think of the difference between fast food and slow food, that should conjure for us, the perfect image of what slow food is. It's everything slow. Fast food is not. And Dr. Shiva hit on a lot of those points earlier this morning. If you were able to catch her keynote this morning, it centers with the grassroots movement, and it centers with people having their hands in the story and in the growing and in the celebrating and in the support of the folks who are actively engaged with growing our food. Slow Food USA is one of the national associations under Slow Food International. We work collaboratively with Slow Food International to support each other's missions, and we bring more and more communities into the global family of producers and growers and eaters. And we share the same values around the seeds and breeds and foods that make our communities unique and give us regional identity. And Slow Food USA specifically is focusing on uniting the joy of food with the pursuit of justice. And to that end, as Janine mentioned in my intro, we cultivate nationwide programs and a network of local chapters, and we host educational events and advocacy campaigns, and we build solidarity through our partnerships. And we've partnered with great orgs like Seed Savers Exchange over the years. The Slow Food USA has a lot of programs based on thematic groups, what we call the slows. If you've heard about slow wine and slow cheese and slow fish, those are all under our purview nationally as well as internationally. But we also have these other thematic programs like School Gardens, Cooks Alliance, Slow Books, and the Arc of Taste. And Arc of Taste is what I'm going to focus on today because that is where the Plant a Seed campaign lives. All of these programs can be explored and engaged with on our website and in your local chapters near you. We have about 85 active chapters across the nation. All right. So the Arc of Taste is a very special program and one of the first programs of Slow Food International. It became really clear early on in the history of slow food that it would be particularly beneficial to collectively combat commodification of our food sources by sharing the stories of our foods. And this was a key way to keep them in our communities and on our plates. To help with this effort, Slow Food created a living catalog that was imagined to house all of the important foods that are delicious and distinctive and at the risk of extinction in the face of the commodification of our diets and the degradation of our environments. One of the key points one of the things we like to say about Arc of Taste is eat it to save it. And this echoes, I went to Benita and Chris's talk last night about the collards, and they quoted one of their friends, John Jackson, who says conservation by consumption. And so, yes, we're all working on the same pathway here. The Arc of Taste itself, like I said, it's a living catalog. And the idea is we're not just like cataloging these items to put on a shelf and think about in the future. We are actively engaging with them in a living way now. Internationally, the Arc of Taste boasts over 6,000 items globally. About 400 of each 400 of those 6,000 are currently in the Slow Food USA catalog. That catalog can be accessed on the Slow Food USA website. You're able to filter for your region and sort of read the stories and read about why these varieties were nominated and why have they been boarded to the Arc of Taste. The nomination process is simple. Anyone can nominate an item to the Arc of Taste, and all of that information is on our website there. But it is a very big invitation to the world to explore the delicious and diverse food biodiversity around you and the world, and to become more engaged with these foods, much like Diane Wilson was mentioning last night in her keynote, that her hope was that people would find deeper kinship with our plant relatives if they engaged more with seeds. And that is certainly one of the goals of the Arc of Taste. So this brings us to Plant a Seed. Plant a Seed is a campaign at Slow Food USA that has been around for 7 years, as I mentioned. It started as a campaign to introduce home gardeners and school gardens within the Slow Food Network, introduce them to the Arc of Taste and this beautiful living catalog, and give them an opportunity to plant these seeds, eat these seeds, save these seeds. And it's always been an invitation to use seeds as sort of our excuse to talk about climate and nutrition within the Slow Food Network. Through the years, the kit has evolved from a full garden in a kit, which featured everything from tomatoes to carrots to turnips to peppers in a single kit. And then in 2022, when I came on, I thought, what if we took a single crop and used that crop as the lens through which we would explore these themes? thinking, you know, specificity is the soul of narrative. If we can get very specific with the focus of Plant a Seed, we can talk about bigger themes. So in 2022, we focused on beans, and this year we're focusing on glorious greens. And all the growers in the group will understand the connection there. And the connection is that if we bring our little crop circle to for the crop cycle, you know, when you have your beans in your garden, those leguminous crops give us nitrogen, fixate the nitrogen in our soil. And oftentimes after you do a leguminous crop, you do a greens crop or another crop that would really benefit from a lot of nutrition. So in that spirit, I thought it would be really great to thematically follow beans with greens. You can see where I'm headed with this cycle. We're going to go to roots and grains next year. And then in 2025, finally fruits. The central theme of Plant a Seed is always engaging with climate and nutrition conversations in our gardens and on our plates. How are we engaging with the conversations around climate and nutrition from our gardens? And in the beans theme last year, we talked a lot about food security and sovereignty. So like I sort of think about it as a table, and we have the climate and nutrition are 2 out of the 3 legs. And then that third leg is one that changes with each year's campaign. So food security and sovereignty last year. And this year, biological and cultural diversity is that third leg. Next year, we're going to talk about building soil and human health. And then again, in the crop cycle tradition, I'm thinking when I have greens in my field and in my gardens and I chop, you know, so a lot of them stay in the field and then get turned into green manure, and that's going towards building our soil health. So that takes us to grains and roots. And then in 2025, we're going to now finally talk about the expression of all those beautiful nutrients in the soil that we just built in our fruits and the fruits that we produce in our gardens. So that's sort of the direction I'm headed with Plant a Seed. The thing I'm always thinking about as I develop this campaign is to keep it interesting, keep it delicious, and keep it accessible. The campaign goals, and these are also the goals of Slow Food USA. We have 3 pillars in Slow Food International as well. And one pillar is to preserve biological and cultural diversity. The second pillar is educating, inspiring, and mobilizing people. And the third is to influence policies in the private and public sectors. To this end, you know, the other central goals of the campaign is largely to distribute the kits to school gardens programs, to get the kids involved, to get them engaging with these interesting varieties and experiencing so much diversity in their diet, right, and in their surroundings. It's also to highlight the Arc of Taste varieties and to engage the growers in the conversations about these varieties with their stories. And also we want to provide resources to everybody who goes on this journey with us with Plant a Seed. In 2022, with the bean theme, we developed this kit, and our campaign goals were to get about 750 of these kits out into the world. Half of them were purchasable kits by the general public, and then roughly the other half would be distributed for free to school garden communities. So we were digging deep into the concept of seed sovereignty. So we included a few seed saving envelopes in addition to 6 interesting bean varieties. So so those were the campaign pillars of those 2. So the beans and then the greens. To back up just a second, you just see that the pillars are represented in both campaigns. And then the kit itself, we selected 6 varieties that were on the Arc of Taste and were also regionally interesting and sort of like generating some regional pride there. We engaged a local artist to create a lino cut for us, to create a little bag. And then we had the 6 varieties in the bag, along with the seed saving packets, as well as some information. We created a bean zine with original content. The bean zine I'll get to in a few minutes, but that has growing information, stories, artwork, specific stats dealing with climate and nutrition. And it was just a little handy little mini zine for folks to carry around with them. On the accessibility scale. The kits were $32 each. Basically, because of all of the information and all of the supplies that were included in this, we thought that was a fair price. And all the kits, all 750 kits, were claimed within a 4 to 5 week period when we launched. So we knew that was really successful. It had never sold out before in the previous 5 years that we had run the campaign. So it's really exciting that this idea of a singular crop as the center focus was really engaging for folks. In addition, we donated 10% of our sales to the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, and in respect to the Indigenous royalties. So, and with this campaign in 2022 and also in 2023, we're really trying to seed the future by engaging with students and at schools and with their teachers and helping with the programming around that. Here's the 2023 kit. It's expanded a little bit because I could not help myself. In 2022, we had 6 packets of beans, and then in 2023, we did 7 packets of greens. And my goal with this kit was to have all sorts of different groups of greens represented: the collards, the chicories, lettuces, mustards, Asian broccoli, something called sea kale, which is really fascinating, and amaranth greens. We had stickers, we have another zine, we have a little green zine that we produced. And we also had add-ons this year because we had partnership with Crop Stories and also Culinary Breeding Network that produced zines in this vein. So we thought, let's uplift the work of all of us and make these available too, and just keep providing resources to folks so they can keep exploring and do deeper dives. The 2023 kit, as I mentioned briefly, had some Arc of Taste varieties in it. So in 2022, we featured only Arc of Taste items. And in 2023, we pulled away from Arc of Taste items just a little bit because there's not a lot of greens represented on the Arc of Taste, to be frank. But there were some new ones like the Feaster Family Mustard, sea kale, as I mentioned before. It's a perennial brassica, and it grows well in marginalized soils. So in a time of climate change, we need all the help we can get with really adaptive varieties. And then ultra cross collards were also a part of our kit this year. Within the ultra cross collards, which if you attended the collard talk yesterday, you learned that it's a very special crop because they can adapt to, they'll express in the climate in the best possible variety will express itself in the environment because it has so many deep genetics from the cross that is represented in that kit or in that seed group. So one of the varieties of collards that's part of the ultra cross mix is the yellow cabbage collard, which is actually on the Arc of Taste. So we felt like that was an Arc of Taste variety as well. We always try to adapt the kit to acknowledge the changing climate, and including ultra cross and a mix of greens that grow in various environments really acknowledged that. The kits in 2023 were $35. Still, for every kit purchase, one went to a school garden. We distributed 750 again. We also collected or distributed 10% of our sales donated to the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network again this year. All right, so I mentioned the zines. We created 2 zines, one in 2022 with the beans focus and this year with the greens focus. These little zines meet our goal of trying to get our participants tons of information about these specific varieties. We solicit a bunch of recipes from our network, and we have the Cooks Alliance, as I mentioned earlier, about one of the programs of Slow Food USA. Our Cooks Alliance chefs are excited to always share recipes with us, and they did that for both of these zines. We collected stories. We partnered with Crop Stories to include some of the stories in the green zine this year, and we also did a bunch of growing information. And like I said, we added, did an add-on zines for the kit. Other ways we've developed this program is to do education for the network and all the participants. We share resources like, what is a brassica? Where did it come from? This is a product of seed selection, selecting for specific traits. We do content around those kinds of things. We also partner with chefs like Abra Barons last year, who we did a network-wide read of her book Grist, which features grains and beans and legumes, and had her do a webinar with us, educational information for the folks that are participating. We've also created an online community with our Facebook page. There's a specific Facebook group for Plant to Seed participants where we share stories, cultural stories like this year's focus, and growing experiences. And then members are able to share their growing experiences as they grow these varieties out and have questions, because they might be varieties they've never grown out before. We ask participants to share pictures of growing, especially with the school gardens participants. It's been very fun to hear everyone's engagement. And then another network engagement that we did is celebration, right? We have to celebrate these things that we grow. It's part of the joy of being a seed saver, being a seed grower. And our network created a bunch of bean suppers last year in the fall to celebrate the harvest of all the beans that they had produced. And like I mentioned, we did a network-wide read, and we did a read-along conversation. The bean suppers happened regionally, the Northeast and the Southeast, featuring the specific bean of that region. We partnered with growers to grow out beans for these suppers. That was quite a challenging experience with all of the climate issues. You never know if you're going to be able to get to the full maturity of any of these crops. So we try to have a nice, vast network of people working with us on this. As I mentioned, all 6 regions were represented in the Bean Supper department. It was really fun, deep engagement from our network. And chapters that did not host a Bean Supper were encouraged to host potlucks and celebrate beans locally, and post about it and share it with the whole network. For 2023, this year, our network engagement is going to entail 2 celebration weeks to celebrate 2 of the varieties of greens in the kit, collards and chicories. Our partners, Culinary Breeding Network and the Heirloom Collard Project, have done Collard Week and Chicory Week in the past. We are really excited about the development. We're sort of in development of how this is going to come up, how this is going to be presented this year. Slow Food USA's Chicory Week and Collard Week will be a sort of choose your own adventure experience with a bingo card that encourages people to engage with these varieties. Find the specific variety of collard at your market, talk to the farmers that are growing it, make a collard sandwich, do some pickling, that kind of thing. And we'll have some prizes for people who participate with bingo. And then the rest of our network is engaging in something every day that week. So we're trying to pull our various network programs into the programming of Chicory Week by offering thematics for each of the days, like going to a restaurant and eating a chicory, engaging with the demos online, doing a live walk through how people's gardens are looking, and that kind of thing. So these events are going to happen. Chicory Week will be happening in October, and Collard Week will be happening in November. We're very excited to get back to the Arc of Taste as being the reason that Plant to Seed even exists. We have a book coming out where you can do a deeper dive in Arc of Taste yourself. It features about 70 of the items from the Arc of Taste and does a real deep dive in the stories and the history of those varieties. There's recipes and there's grower profiles, and we're really excited to have a book to be able to celebrate the Arc of Taste on a larger scale, and you'll see it at nationwide at booksellers. Okay, I feel like I blasted through this program, and I'm sure there's questions and clarifications, but it's an overview of Plant to Seed, and there's a lot of resources on our website to do a deeper dive there as well.
Thank you so much, Mara. I love this program. And I love your quote, keep it interesting, keep it delicious, and keep it accessible. I feel like those are
Exactly.
words to live by. So we have just a few minutes and we have some questions. So let's get
Great.
to as many as we can. And again, if we don't get to your question, please feel free to connect with Mara and we'll put her contact information in the chat here. So the first question is from Jessica. When do these kits become available for purchase each year? And is there a sponsor option to buy for donation?
Amazing. Yeah, great question, Jessica. Thank you. We shoot for February or March. In 2022, they launched early February because we were trying to do it on International Pulses Day, which is February 9th. And then this year we did it March 1st, we launched. So that's my goal, is to always get them out the door, at least sales done in the month of March, and then get all the kits out the door in April. We had all the kits out the door by the second week of April this year. That's always my goal. I know everyone's got different growing zones and different things to consider, so as early as possible is my goal. Is there a sponsor option to buy for a donation? I am going to put that on the docket for 2024. What a great idea. Thank you so much for that idea. If you can't grow yourself, maybe you can sponsor someone else to grow. Yes, I love it. Thank you.
Speaking of being in different growing conditions, how do you think about or manage the fact that kits include varieties that may be specific to or easier to grow in one region than another if you're sending these all over?
Super great question. And we think about this all the time. We've gotten requests to do regional kits. I don't have the bandwidth or the staffing to really manage that kind of production of kits for so many different zones. However, I am always considering this, and especially like with the beans and with the greens this year, you know, beans and greens are pretty adaptable to their environments. And so that's sort of why I chose those groups, because most people will have success with some or most of the varieties that we choose. I always try to choose ones that don't need super specific growing conditions. But I understand there's always nuance to that conversation. So that's why we do so many varieties also. We want people to be successful with at least, 60 to 70 to, if not 100% of the varieties in each of the kits. Definitely considering this question all the time. That's why Ultra Cross was such a fun find to put in the kit.
Yeah. So you're connecting with both students and adult gardeners, right? And so it seems like there's kind of a built-in way of connecting to students through schools, but how do you, what kind of outreach do you do to connect to community gardeners and backyard gardeners?
Awesome. Thank you for that question. That's something I didn't mention was we do a newsletter also for every single participant that purchased or got received a kit, whether they're a school garden or just a purchaser. And in that newsletter, we do deeper dives on things, and we solicit questions, and we ask people to share their experiences. And that's been pretty successful. And we also have we have two actual Facebook pages. We have a Plant a Seed specific group on Facebook for participants, but we also have a school gardens Facebook page. So there's multiple ways to get a hold of us with your questions and engagement. And then everybody gets invited to all the various webinars and all the various engagements.
Nice. You talked about how each year you're exploring a different theme and how you're being intentional about, the greens following the beans, et cetera. Is that part of your message too? Do you talk about your reasoning for those decisions?
Yes, we do, especially when we have webinars. It's an opportunity to verbally explain the reason for being. Once again, I mean, it is in the zines, the original zines that we produce. There's a couple of links that I've shared that give you access to the PDFs of both of those zines, so you can sort of do a deeper dive on how we do that messaging.
Good deal. And final question, what kind of response are you getting from people who have gone through this program? What are they learning from planting these seeds?
Oh my goodness, it's been so sweet, especially with the students that are learning and with the beans. We chose beans as the first foray into this singular crop model because they're one of the most forgiving seed saving experiences. And so the students just loved the very, put a bean in the ground and you get a bean plant and then you get beans. It was a very very tactical, practical crop. And they were able to cook them, and then they were able to reseed them and see it all happen again. So I think particularly with the beans, the crop cycle was super, super engaging. And the beauty of the beans is always engaging too. With the greens, people are just overwhelmed by how luscious they are. And, they're just so abundant and fluffy, and the textures and the colors. It's just really been fun to hear people talk about how much they love the what is the word? The enthusiasm, I guess, of the greens, how showy they are. They're so fancy,
Yeah, they're beautiful.
So it's people are engaging on like a really emotional and like human, almost artistic point of view. They just really appreciate the qualities of these varieties because they are special. They have special traits, and it's nice that that's coming through in the kit.
Yeah. Well, Mara, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and what a great project here. Again, there are links in the chat if you want to learn more and get involved in this project. Thanks all for being here, and thanks again, Mara.
Oh, thank you so much. Have fun growing, everybody. See you around.